Say hello to the newest product in the world of distress. This is Distress Spritz. So you might be thinking, well, what is it? Well, hopefully in this demo, I'm going to share what it is. This is what it looks like. Distress Spritz, completely different type of bottle, completely different type of packaging. It is a beautiful product that, in my opinion, as the designer of distress, is important in the world of distress. And you're going to learn in this demo how it works with distress, why you might want to work with it in distress, and how it is completely different than anything we have in distress, okay? It is available in 12 colors. Now, the 12 colors are available now worldwide. Ranger has been shipping it for weeks to get it all over as much as possible. You know, obviously there's different transit times, but they have been shipping. Retailers and all of that, they've been asked to put it on their site at 9:15 Pacific, 12:15 Eastern. So if you guys are rushing out, chances are it's not on anyone's website. Well, hopefully it isn't yet, but because it's still going to go up in about 8 minutes. That's when it'll be available. The Spritz, they're a very unique formulation. They are a curated blend of pearlescent pigments in a clear liquid. And we're going to talk about really how this works. But the product, these sprays are really functional in so many different ways throughout distress, and we're going to take it down little by little. The 12 colors that I've started out with, and I say started out with in the hopes that Ranger continues to expand the palette, these are distress colors. So we have worn lipstick, picked raspberry, barn door, spice marmalade, fossilized amber, twisted citron, peeled paint, peacock feathers, weathered wood, uncharted mariner, wilted violet, and walnut stain. Needed to start kind of with a great color. The tin that you see this in, this is a storage tin. This storage tin will be available early fall. So keep that in mind. I wanted to share the whole thing because it's a very thought out release and what we've done, but I want you to understand its availability. So the Spritz available now, tin will be available in early fall to store them in, and we'll talk a little bit about the replacement sprayers, because the sprayers for the Spritz are different than the other sprayers that we have currently in mica stain, spray stain, oxide sprays. It's just a whole different sprayer. These will be available early next month, so just in a couple of weeks, but you don't need to worry about replacement sprayers out of the gate. We wanted to just bring the product to market, but know that yes, there are replacements available, and yes, there's already storage planned, but that's really what we have lined up for you. So what is Distress Spritz? Well, in general, it is a pearlescent pigment. You can see that pearl in a clear liquid. So you can see the liquid in there when it's kind of separated because this has been laying on the side. The liquid appears tinted, but it is not. It has no colorant in the liquid itself. But unlike traditional spray pearls, because you know Ranger has many different pearl products in their line, what I wanted very specific about this and why this was such a challenge for the chemists at Ranger is because I wanted the pearls to be a blend of color to match distress. Now in the world of pigments, there's really only, there's a lot of pigments out there, but it's not as easy as dye ink, where you can mix different colors and actually create a translucent dye. Pigments, they're solid particles. So when you go to try to match a color, you have to use many different ones, and that's what Brian did. Some of these colors have 5, 6, 7 different pearls. We're talking a 0.05 amount of a pigment to make the color, and that's what I wanted more than anything. Because when I said, oh, I want a sprayable pigment, they're like, yeah, no problem. Like, but I want it to perfectly match the distress palette. They're like, well, that's where you're going to run into issues. But like anything, you just keep at it, and we tried. And I would say that we really went through well over 100, I don't know the final count, maybe 150 different samples just to come up with these colors, because I wanted the color to be very specific. And because it is a pigment, it's going to allow you to use it on so many different distress mediums to alter how distress looks. That's what I wanted more than anything, is I wanted something that you could use with your current distress products, whether you use distress ink, distress oxide, distress stains, distress oxide sprays, distress watercolor pencils, distress paints, texture paste, collage medium. You can use the Spritz with those to accompany them, and that's what the whole demo is going to be about. The Spritz itself, I'm just real quick going to bring these in just so it answers, I think, the initial question, because these were the seasonal mica stains that we've brought to market for the last couple of years. So mica stains, these are a seasonal product, but what these of course were is a color of ink and a color of pearl. So when you sprayed it out, you got the color of ink and a color of pearl. That's what made these mica stains really fun. We were able to take a lot of different blends of distress colors, and you could spray it on, and then when the ink dried, you also got this great pearlescent shimmer. And that was wonderful because you can create wonderful effects and wonderful backgrounds with these. And so I'm happy that Ranger's going to continue this as a seasonal product line where they come out during the season. But these, of course, are an ink color and a pearl color, completely different than Distress Spritz. Distress Spritz are just a pearl. So when you spray them out, it's just going to be that luminous pearl on a white background. So you can see, like, when the light hits it, it just creates that beautiful sheen. And the sprayer, that was the other thing that I wanted, was really important because I wanted to have a spritz. That's why I called it spritz. I wanted a spritz, almost splattery effect when you spritz them. Because when you use this product, you're going to learn that how you use it can alter the outcome. That's the cool thing about this, is that you can do a lot of great things when it comes to working with it. You spritz it on and the sprayer literally does this for you. It creates that effect. So this is just showing, this is just worn lipstick, but this is showing one spritz just on white cardstock. Then when you do two spritz, you can see that you get a little bit more of that pearlescent coverage. So see, when the light hits it, that's where you get all of that pearl, the reflection, because the color is, of course, the pearl. And then this is when you do three. So the more you do, the more you cover. So it's not like, oh, do you have to spray it 10 times? Or it's really up to you. If you want just a light spritzing, a medium spritzing, or a heavy spritzing, that's what this whole demo is about, is understanding the properties of this product. And that's what I want you to take more than anything, is just how this product works and what you can use it with. All right, so let's go through the colors. This is where I said it's going to be in-depth. So if you don't really care about colors or seeing colors, well, take a snack break, or now you're done because now you know the surprise. But understanding the colors, this is what makes this product happy in my book, because they nailed the colors. So what we were doing is every time that I wanted to coordinate a color of spritz, I was looking at Distress ink, how it watercolored out, Distress Oxide, how it oxidized, and Distress watercolor pencils and how they wet out. And the reason I did that is because this is a dye, this is a pigment, and this is a dye and pigment fusion. So I just wanted to land somewhere in there, because obviously, even though these are the same color in different Distress products, you can see that, you know, they coordinate, but you can't say that a dye matches a pigment. That would be impossible. So as long as we got somewhere in here, that was my goal, and we really did it. So this is what the product would look like. So this is just worn lipstick, just spritz, so you can see it's a really nice coverage. But if you go heavy with that, you can really get a beautiful, luminous, worn lipstick pearl cardstock. And once this is applied to a surface, it dries very quickly, and it does not flume off. It does not rub off. So all of that pearl that's on that paper, you can make Distress pearlized cardstock. You can just spray it on until you saturate it, and then it's done. You can die cut it, but you can also use it over things. And that's what I wanted to really bring to the world of Distress, is a way that we can use the Distress products we have and love, but in a new way. So can you use this product by itself? Absolutely. Was it designed to be used by itself? Not really, but you can use it that way. Here's what's so cool about it. When you take a look at a background like this, so this is just a background that I did with worn lipstick, Distress ink. I smushed it down, I sprayed it, I created that background. But one side of this is actually spritzed. Man, so you can see the color match is pretty spectacular, that when you put it over a color, it doesn't alter the color. That's the big difference, because when you use mica stain, because it was a stain, if you sprayed a stain on there, it would alter your background. The spritz is just going to add that color over your background without altering what you've done. You can use it over inked backgrounds. You can even use it over blended backgrounds. And when you do it, it doesn't alter your ink blending when you spritz it on. So it doesn't, because it dries very quickly. It's a completely different formulation or base than what's in mica sprays, mica stains, any of the other products. And that is what makes it so freaking cool. And we can mix and match things. So if we talk about like surfaces, you could use it on craft. So we can, so it's still craft paper, but you can see how, see when the light hits it, it becomes that color of pearl. But if you're just looking at the paper, you don't really notice the spritz until it changes. Obviously, the darker you go, the more intense that pearlescent becomes. So here you can see on black cardstock, but it's still going to be that pink color of worn lipstick, okay? Now, before I go to the next color, let me just kind of take you through and just explain when I said you can alter it. So again, we have a worn lipstick background, all done with ink, okay? Now when I tip it to the light, now you're going to see the distinct difference. The whole background is worn lipstick, but this is worn lipstick by itself, just ink, kind of blended. This could be oxide or stain, it wouldn't matter. But this is what it looks like with worn lipstick spritz over it, so that's why it matches. That's why these two look different than this half. The coordinating color looks perfect, but when the light hits it, you got worn lipstick. This one is picked raspberry spritz, so if you wanted a background a little pinker, you could spritz it with a pinker spritz, and then when the light hits it, you're going to get that totally different luminous look. If you wanted it a little redder, this one is Barn Door, you're going to get that red pearlescent. And that's the beauty of working with this, is that you get all of those, that pearlescent tone on whatever it is that you want to create. Okay, that's what you're going to hopefully understand when this is all said and done. All right, let's continue to go through the colors. So now we've got picked raspberry, a beautiful color, but picked raspberry, of course, is like, well, it's a bluish pink. It's raspberry color. So you can see from the Distress products, that's if you just spritz it on, you have that beautiful, beautiful pearl, and we want it spritzed. We want it all speckly, fleckly. Here is when you saturate that paper. Again, beautiful. I mean, it just has such a wonderful opalescent quality to it, and it just dries so smooth. It's absolutely beautiful. Then, of course, we've got, there's our color. So we've got our inked background, and there's that side with the spritz. Pretty crazy, right? When you look at it, you're like, oh, it looks the same. And then when the light hits it, boom, there it is. I mean, that's the magic right there. On craft, on black. So I'm just showing you the colors really raw on a specific, these are all messed up, on really specific, like on a certain plain paper. But of course, we're going to get into using it with ink and with pencils and with all of those other things. So Barn Door, of course, is more of an orange red. So you need to keep that in mind. So there's our color spritzed on, where you can see a lot of the paper. This is when you saturate it, when you really soak it on there. And of course, the more you put on there, the more it will start to kind of ripple out and do all sorts of great effects. The spritz is water reactive when it dries. So it won't flume, it's completely dry to the touch, but like in true Distress products, if you wet it, it will reactivate, which is exactly what I wanted it to do. So you'll see how we use that to our advantage when we do some backgrounds. Then we've got, again, our swatch, inked the whole thing, this side spritzed. You can see that Barn Door on craft. I love that red. You can really see how it pops on black. So good. Then we get into Spice Marmalade. And this, I think, is when you also appreciate the nuance when it comes to how the Distress colors differ. So like Spice Marmalade is really that warmer orange. It has a lot of yellow undertone to it than, say, Carved Pumpkin does. So here with Spice Marmalade, you can see that it just has that beautiful kind of golden orange color to it when the light hits it. That's if you saturated it. I mean, look at that. Whoo, beautiful. It's so crazy. I love to touch it because it always feels like really, really different. And then there is our half and half, where you can see that it matches, and then that totally changes. Absolutely beautiful. We'll talk about resist, and we'll talk about paste and all of that. Because it is a pigment, it's not necessarily going to resist the way you would anticipate it resisting, but it does pull off to the side on certain products, and it actually works with resist. So I'll show you that. There's craft. You can see how it's really, it's totally playing with the camera, and I love it. There you can see, ooh, over black. That's delightful. Then we get into Fossilized Amber, a favorite of mine. I love this yellow because it's got that dirty kind of umber quality to it, much dirtier than mustard seed. So here, ooh, look at that. That, to me, this reminds me of, like, if you know the mica saying, this is like flickering candle without the undertone dye. It just has just that really beautiful, oh, that golden color. So nice. This is, of course, if you flood the paper. And I wanted to do a sample because you also need to see, like, when you flood it, some colors will become very solid and other colors will start to kind of separate. That's just the nature of the type of pigments that are used, because some of these pigments, I'm not going to get into the chemistry of it, but some of them are cosmetic grade powders. Just depends on the color that we needed. And those interact different when you flood the surface. But just know that. Like, sometimes you might be like, oh gosh, when I do worn lipstick, it's solid. But when I do fossilized amber, it breaks apart. Why is that? Well, it's just the pigment. Because again, it wasn't designed to do this. It was designed to spritz. And they all spritz exactly the same way. They create that great speckled look. Take a look at just how you can, I mean, how that glows. So pretty. But I love how it doesn't alter your background. So good. Craft, see, brown, but when the light hits it. And this is a tough one. I mean, I wanted to make sure that the light would cooperate with this live, because it's so interesting. Like, when you see a product, and you're going to see really in the demos some cool things that we can do with it. Twisted Citron. There are certain colors that I gave to Brian. And he's like, can we please just pick another one of those 72 that you have? I'm like, yeah, but if we can, like, I wanted colors that had a very specific nuance in the palette. Twisted Citron is that weird yellow, green, lime, electric, firefly color. And so it really became a challenge, but he did it. He nailed it. So you'll see that because this has that green and yellow, sometimes when you just look on white paper, it looks almost brownish, but when the light hits it, that's when you get that magical, even see, it's so bright and perfect. Oh, it's the reflection of that. There's citron. Maybe there you go. You'll get a better feel for that electric lime. So of course, on our background, you can see that when the light hits it, that's when you have like a better match, because it's got some yellow and green undertone. It kind of looks a little brown on there, but when the light hits it, then you get that perfect match. So those are really the compromises that I wanted it to do. And when you put, I mean, you're going to be amazed when you see what this adheres to, because there's so many things that we've learned throughout the development of this product and how it works, and how Brian developed a specific base formula for this because of how I wanted it to work with Distress. I mean, the fact that it goes over Distress paint and doesn't wipe off, that's just crazy. So now we're into peeled paint, a classic. I needed that wonderful kind of dirty green in my life. You can see that. Peeled paint is just magic. A favorite of many, I know, but see, when you look at that luminous look of peeled paint, ah, yum. So good. So good how that works. There it is on craft. There it is on black. Then we have peacock feathers. So peacock feathers, of course, we've got that tealish play. So we've got green and blue that we're playing with. So what, and I'm not sure if maybe on this swatch, the camera will pick it up, the heavier swatch, where you can really see that depending on how the light hits it, you can see more blue or turquoise, or you see more of that green coming through. Because remember, we're dealing with pigments here. So this means it's something that you can't just mix up and create this solid color like a dye. These particles will always remain individual particles. So how do you get them to work together to where your eye reads it as a new color? And so I think that's really fascinating on peacock feathers, because we have that bluish green color. But see, this is another one that has almost that darker look when the light doesn't hit it, but when the light hits it, boom, there you have that wonderful blend of teal. Pretty amazing. And a lot of stuff, I mean, I ask questions like a 5-year-old when it comes to what the base is made out of and what is this. But, you know, in true industry, some stuff is proprietary, and I get that. But you'll see really some of the characteristics that this product has and why it differs than anything I even have in Distress already. So now we get into weathered wood, a very cool silvery blue. Take a look at that. So this almost has like, I don't know, it's a very icy but very gray blue, like weathered wood should be. And look at how that spritz just blends over the top of it. Again, half and half. There it is on craft. Beautiful for like galaxy effects on black cardstock, because you get that wonderful starry look, but it's not white. It's that silvery blue color. Then we have Uncharted Mariner. Again, another complex color because it has these dark black undertones, but when the when the water hits it, it has this kind of electric blue. So that was really important to me. So it's like, I want it to look dark like Uncharted should, but when the light hits it, I want to see that bright blue like it waters out to be. And that's really what Brian did to just nail this. Look at that. Absolutely wonderful. And even down to the bottle. We're going to get into bottle specifics and everything when the demo starts. There's Uncharted. There it is on Craft. See, there you can see more of that blue. Here it is on Black. So good. Then we go into Wilted Violet, just a classic purple. Wilted Violet really is just a nice classic purple in the world of distress, but look at that. Look at how beautiful that is. Look at it on just back. It's going to be great for Halloween. Just love the finish of that because, again, you can use it over a background. We know that if we wanted it darker, we could use, say, Villainous Potion under there and then put Wilted Violet and get a bright purple over dark. We'll play around with that during the demo. Look at that on Craft and look at it on Black. When Mario saw it, he's like, ooh, I love that. I'm like, don't you? Isn't that like, it looks like it should just wipe right off because it's just kind of sitting there. And that's the surprise of working with Distress Spritz is that it doesn't. So now we're going to talk about Walnut because Walnut is completely different. Walnut stain is totally different in the Spritz world than anything else because, well, if you know anything about me, you know that brown is my favorite color. So of course I need to do brown Spritz, but as Brian explained, like there is no brown pearl, Tim. Like you have to understand that it's just not brown. It's made up of a bunch of different colors, and this is one where it's like so many different colors that I would have never anticipated made up this Spritz. It has a significant amount of black pearl, so at least there's a black pearl in there, which I love. But what's interesting about this one, and Zoe Hillman gave me like the best way to describe it, because I was trying to talk about it, and she was using it, and she's like, it reminds me of like an oil slick, and I'm like, that is really a great way. I'm going to use that one, so thanks, Zoe. But that's what this particular one is. So like when you work with this color, it just has this. It's a beautiful brown pearl, but it's kind of like, yeah, like an oil slick. It just has this luminous look over the top of it, and it's absolutely incredible. There you can see it over walnut stain. So see, we've got just that, doesn't alter the background, but that shine, it doesn't look as sparkly as, say, picked raspberry would, you know, because that has a lot of lighter, more sparkly colors. But I agree, Mel, it's my favorite of them all too. But just understand that because we're dealing with pigments, you know, some darker colors, especially in the browns, they're going to have a lot of black undertone, which I dig because it does create that oil slickness. So sometimes you're looking, you're like, oh, it's not really pearly. Well, but it is. It just is not sparkly, I guess, the way the others are. But nevertheless, I love them. So those colors, I mean, just the fact that we can take just some great backgrounds and have some beautiful colors is my favorite thing about Spritz. All right, so let's get it. How are we doing on the light? We're good?
I think so.
All right. Just, you know, you have to kind of play around with the light and make friends with it because it doesn't like when you show pearls in the camera. So, the bottle. The bottle, believe it or not, was the very first thing that I started with. Before I even pitched this idea to Ranger, I already sourced the bottle that I wanted for many, many reasons. Because I wanted a bottle that would be really easy to hold, really easy to store, wouldn't take up a lot of space. Maybe it even fits in some of your shelf racks, like where you have re-inker bottles. If you were going to line them up, you could do that as well. But I wanted something that was really quick to mix. So you can see again how that pearl is laying on its side. And these have a mixing ball. So when you shake it up, it's going to mix that pigment. And that's what's going to get all of that stuff to just start swirling around very quickly. Okay, that was important to me. These bottles, believe it or not, these hold the same amount as our other typical 1 ounce bottle. It's the same.
Cool.
You wouldn't think so, but see, this is just a wider bottle. It's just different because this has ink in it, and it was totally fine in that. But because this was just pigment, but not only just pigment, more pigment than even the mica stain. This has twice the amount of pearlescent than any of our other pearlescent spray products in Distress because I wanted it to have a luminous feel, and I wanted it where a little would go a long way. So we need to reimagine everything, and because it was a new bottle, that required Ranger to do completely new tooling and new machinery to fill it. I needed a new spray, so that meant a totally different sprayer, a different straw. I mean, everything about it was specific to this product, and that's why really, again, Kathy and Alan had to do all the sourcing to get it, but it's everything that I wanted it to be. I even wanted the label to kind of sit this way, you know, very much cosmetic with the color on it. And Meg did a great job on the label. And the beauty of this is that when it comes to working with this, you can utilize them however you want. I'm going to talk about storage in just a second. Because this is really a top coat and a top accent, and I talk about this a lot, pricing was really important. And this is where I have to just thank Alan more than anything, because I wanted this to have a really inexpensive MSRP, right? Suggested retail price. This sells for, I think it's what, $350. I don't want to quote because I know everybody has different prices around the world, but that's really the general retail of that, because typically ink pads, I mean, now they're up in the, you know, in the $5.99 spots, $3.99, right? $3.99. So I wanted it cheaper than an ink pad because I wanted it to be something that you would know that when you go to use it, it's something that you don't mind spraying on that because it is an accent, okay? So when you use this, it's important that you pay attention to the demo, or if you don't have time to watch the demo, you come back and watch the demo, because when we're working with this, we are working with a luminous pigment that's going to go on the surface, okay? I agree, the price is real, especially in today's economy, especially when we're sourcing everything in today's world. You know, some stuff even gets grandfathered in for price. So let's talk about storage. For storage, the tin was important because if you watch any demo, you know that when I use a pearlescent spray, I like to lay it on its side when I go to use it, when I'm using it. So this tin, this is the same type of tin like we did the mini Distress inks in, or the mini Archivals. So it doesn't have a latch. I wanted it very thin profile. So Kathy worked with the factory to source the perfect tin. I wanted a little wiggle room so you could just easily reach in. So I didn't want them packed in there to where like they pop up like a Jack-in-the-Box. I wanted you to be able to just grab that. So storage-wise, they fit 12 colors. They do not have to be stored on their sides. They could be stored upright, on their sides, really whatever works for you. Personally, when I'm not using them, I do store them vertically. The reason I do that is because I like all of the liquid, and depending on how you use your stuff though, but I like all the liquid to remain at the bottom because that's where the end of your tube is. So let's just say, for example, you use peacock feathers and you were using it and you had just a little bit left. If you store it on its side and say the tube is like midway and you don't use it for a while, there's a chance that that pigment could dry in the tube and clog up the sprayer, which is why they're replacement sprayers. You need to be realistic in the world that, you know, we are putting in a pigment going through a tiny little pinhole spray, and the viscosity has to be perfect for the sprayer not to clog. If the sprayer clogs, it's usually because you didn't mix it fully, and that happens. You're excited to use a color and you just spray it, it clogs. Sometimes you can get them to unclog. It's pretty rare because usually it's not so much in the tube, it's in that top little bit, like a little nugget got lodged in there, and that's really why there are replacement sprayers. So it is what it is. I mean, it happens to me all the time. That's why we have replacement parts for it. But I found that, you know, initially it doesn't really matter because the bottles are full, but as they go down, I just like to store them this way, upright. So, you know, if you're traveling or you're throwing them in a box, maybe you want to put a rubber band around it, but you don't need to if you're just going to put them in a shelf. I have mine like, you know, you can have it in a drawer or leaning against something. But I wanted this tin specifically because when I go to use it, I like them on their sides, because instead of the pearl being stuck at the bottom, because if you stored them this way and you go to use it right away, you have to shake a lot longer because all that pearl is at the bottom. By storing them on their sides, all that pearl you can see is going all along the length of that bottle. So when we mix it, that mixing ball is kind of bouncing up and down, scraping it off the side. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's really what I wanted to do with the storage. And that's why we didn't do an insert, we didn't do that. And it may not be your jam. You may not want a tin. You may be like, look, I don't need a tin to stand it up to lay it down. I'll just stand it however I want and throw them down when you want. But you've noticed when I demo that they like to roll all over the place. So when you go to mix it, you do need to shake it up, and that's another thing. I wanted a label design to actually leave a gap in the bottle because I want you to visibly be able to see that it's mixed up, and it doesn't take long to mix that up into a pearlescent liquid. So just all of these little nuances that maybe you probably don't care about, these are all the things that Ranger had so much patience with me. Even when I was working with Meg on the label, I'm like, nope, it needs to be a certain size. It needs to stop here. I want visibility because I want to be able to see, is the pearl there or is the pearl mixed up? All of those things were super important to me when it came to working with spritz. So that's why. So do you need the tin if you're going to stand them up on a shelf? No, you can just throw them in a tray or put them in a box, but you know, it's a bottle, and if you have a lot of them, they tend to want to roll all over the place. And I think that, you know, having storage like that is worth it. Okay, so let's get into it. Let's get into the demo and just play along, because I think when we play with products, you're going to understand a little bit about all the different properties. I'm going to do my best to explain and answer questions. Mario, thanks for working on the chat, super important, because I'll try to answer questions. So if we don't get to the question right away, it's not that we're ignoring you, it's just the fact that I'm probably getting ready to answer it in the demo. So just keep that in mind, all right? There we go. Perfect, perfect, perfect. Okay. Oh, I feel good about this.
No,
I feel like I can exhale now. I'm telling you, like, okay, you just talked about everything, breathe.
You did really good.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to talk distress product so I can answer all the questions, and then we're going to actually show it. We're going to talk about how we can work with the product. So let's just talk about certain distress products. We have, I have ink and ink. Of course I do, because I probably put that in here. There is the Oxide. That's funny. All right, am I still in frame? There we go.
Good.
Ink and Oxide, spray stain, Oxide spray, paint, and pencil. Now, oh, my paint is, you can tell I love Peacock Feathers, see? Because it's like, nope, all the paint. Let's stop there. There we go. And pencil. You don't see crayon here. I don't think that the spritz work well with the crayon. It's just something that's in it. The crayon does work as a good resist for those that were asking. If you have crayon and you spray the spritz on it, it does have a tendency to want to resist the crayon. I don't know, must be something in it. But let's just talk about like these different products and how a spritz will work with it. So I just did some samples just to share with you how this works, because depending on what distress medium you use, maybe you use all of them, I want you to know that you can use Distress Spritz with your distress products, whatever it is that you have, okay? You've already seen how they look when you don't have anything under them. You could totally just use that wonderful color. But if you want to use it on another product, you can. So I just wanted to do matchy-matchy just for ease of use. So this is just Distress Watercolor cardstock. I went in and ink blended Distress ink, taking a blending tool, blend the color, because what I wanted is to make sure that when I spritzed it, I didn't get wicking, right? You know that Distress ink and Oxide, these Distress products are water reactive, so when you wet them, they start like bleeding away. This doesn't do that. Yes, it's going to sit on the surface so you can see where the spritz spritzes, but it doesn't react the ink color the way water would. That's also something that's in the spritz. I see a lot of questions about the storage tin. So the storage tin, many stores are doing like a pre-order or a wish list, but because it's not shipping until early fall, I don't think anyone's adding it to a bundle. That's just my thought, but check your retailer and maybe you can get on a wait list for it, because I still wanted it part of the live against probably most people's logistical wishes, but I wanted to answer that knowing that it was going to be early fall. But I know a lot of people are doing pre-orders for that now. Okay, so back to this ink blending. I wanted that if I spritz it on there, it's still going to look blended, but now I'm just going to have that spritz sitting over the surface. So that was a great thing about the formulation Brian did, is that it doesn't react the way water would on a blended background. Again, this is ink. We've already seen that when you do an inky background, how we can include this color, and look at how you can just put it right over the top and get that beautiful luminous sheen. It doesn't even change the way my ink background is. But what about Oxide? Oxide, as we know, is very sensitive to moisture. It is designed to be that way. It's designed to oxidize and turn this white chalky look when it comes in contact with moisture. It does not react with the Distress Spritz. So you're going to still get that creamy, dreamy blend, and when you spritz it, it's just going to put that pearlescent finish over the top. It is not going to oxidize it. Could you oxidize it with water and then spritz it? Absolutely. But that's another great feature about working with the spritz, is that it's not going to react, because I just wanted an accent. You have to think of spritz as like sprinkles, just something that you just put over the top as a little accent, a little treat. That's really what it is. So when you put it over the top of that, I mean, look at that beautiful spritz. So yeah, you're going to get big dots, little dots. That's by design. I wanted that spritzed effect because I think it creates such a great look to a background. Now, spray stain and oxide is going to be exactly the same, meaning what it does with an ink pad, what it does with an oxide, it's going to do the same thing on these backgrounds. So it's going to work exactly the same. You can spritz it on wet or dry, which we'll see in the demos, but it's going to dry exactly the same. But this is the one that surprised me the most, Distress Paint, because Distress Paint, if you're familiar with it, is the only Distress product that is permanent and waterproof when dry. So I thought, okay, well, it's definitely not going to work with paint, but I tried anyway because I have the mind of a 5-year-old. This is Distress Paint, painted on cardstock, dried, and I spritzed it. Now, I don't know if you can see, I'm trying to get there you can see it. You can see that the spritz, unlike how it worked like on an ink background where you don't see it, it's just a little bit more, I'll just say, blended into the background. This one, I think you can see almost little specks. It sits on the surface. So it doesn't soak in because, after all, the paint is completely permanent. It's waterproof. So it was no surprise that this couldn't permeate through that paint and dry. So I thought, oh, well, as soon as it dries, it's just going to wipe off. Nope. On that paint, as soon as it dries, it is completely permanent on that paint. Now, will it react to water? Yes, but it won't react to the touch. So as I say, don't lick your art and you're going to be fine. It won't reactivate unless it is wet, not just from the touch, but like literally wet. And the same thing if you do backgrounds with paint. So you can have that wonderful marbly painted background and you can spritz it and it will dry on top of that. Okay. Now, the other great product were pencils. You know that watercolor pencils, people love using their watercolor pencils for different ways. And again, I'll demo this. What's really interesting about the pencil is that you can use the spritz with it in a couple of different ways. So this one, I actually spritz some onto a craft sheet or a cup, take your pencil, put it into the color of spritz that you want, and the same way that this would react with water, you can actually create, I don't know if the light's going to cooperate, there you go, you can create a pearlized pencil. So if you dip this in spritz and color directly from the pencil, you will get a pearlized pencil. Now, if you don't want to be that intense, then all you do is color like normal, and then you would spritz it and just take either a water brush or a paintbrush, dip it into the spritz as you would water, and when you watercolor with the spritz, you'll get a much softer pearlescent sheen. There, you can see it right there. So even in the watercolor. So see how you can see that watercolor look, but watch when the light hits it. See how that pearl just totally sheens out? So now you can create luminous, shimmery watercolor with your watercolor pencils. But if you watercolor with your inks, it would be no different. Put your ink pad down or maybe a re-inker, do some spritz, and mix them together and you could have pearlescent liquid watercolor. So that to me is why this product was just made the most sense in Distress. I didn't need to do pearlescent powders. I didn't need to do pearlescent watercolors because I wanted something that I could use and create those effects with everything that I already have and everything that many of you have. So I think that was really, really important when it comes to understanding the purpose of a spritz. It was just that accent to really accent all of the other products. But what I didn't anticipate, besides working with the color, is how it would work with mediums that I had no intention on it working with. That's always the surprise factor. And we'll talk about both of these because we talked about paint. So this is Collage medium. This is like a gel medium, dries to a matte finish, also permanent and waterproof. And then Resist Spray. Resist Spray is like a sprayable glossy accents, if you will. It's very fluid. You spray it on. It has a great little texture, but it dries to a high glossy finish. So of course, both of these, knowing that really when you put water on it, you just wipe it right off, I would think there's no way a spritz is going to go on it because it shouldn't. These are both almost sealers, if you will. Truth is, it does. It works on both of them in a surprisingly unique way. So this is spritz over Resist Spray. So Resist Spray is much more fluid. It creates a nice shiny surface to the card. You can see how shiny that tag is. See, the tag is just normally a matte tag. I sprayed it with Resist Spray, let it dry, or dry it with a heat tool, then I spritzed it. And I was trying different things of like a light spritz, a heavy spritz, and you can see it beads up like water on a waxed car. But when it dries, be that air dry or a heat tool, it will dry on that surface and you get that beautiful luminous shine, but it doesn't wipe off. What? I don't get it. Collage medium, same thing. So here you can even see those little brush lines because I love brush lines in my collage medium. Collage medium's a little bit more grippy. It should, because we know with collage medium we can work crayons and everything into that surface. So I love how the Spritz accented collage medium. And I know that if you check out, I know just because I talked to Paula, Paula has used Distress Spritz in both wet and over dry collage medium. What? Yeah, you wait. We've got makers that are, I don't even know what the makers are doing. I'm going to be just as surprised. They're going to post after the live has ended. So I can't wait to see what they dream up. I know there's going to be grungy ways and shiny ways and swatch ideas, but it's very interesting to know that on a treated surface. Now, I can't speak for everything. I can't speak for like, well, does it work on photo paper? Does it work on glossy? Does it work? It doesn't work on Yupo. I did try Yupo. That was just plastic. But certain surfaces, my point is, if you're curious if Spritz will dry on a surface you have, try it. Just like I did. I wasn't anticipating it working, and it did, and I'm like, oh my gosh, well, look at that. That's just beautiful, because now I got shiny and pearly in the same. Other mediums, paste. Well, it should be no surprise if you work with either of these pastes. This is texture paste opaque and black opaque, that these are porous. So that means that when you go to use it, they're designed to absorb ink, absorb sprays. So I definitely wanted it to work with that, and I knew it would. Here's a swatch just showing you the difference of how these spritzes react on their own, solely on their own. So this is the opaque, which is a white paste. When you spritz it on, you not only get that really beautiful, vibrant color, but you also get that luminous pearlescence of the spritz. This is black. Now, black opaque came out for Halloween, but now it's part of the everyday line. So when you use black, you don't get the vibrancy, if you will, as the color, but you still get that wonderful luminous shine of that pearl. That picked raspberry still shines as picked raspberry. It's just for whatever reason, it's way more colorful on white paste as it is black. But on black, I love just how it creates almost like a vintage look to it, right? Isn't that cool? So it has a totally different look on paste where you think, well, it's a pigment, so I guess it really doesn't matter what my paste color is. It should look the same, right? I would think so too. I would agree initially until you do it, and then you're like, well, no, it looks totally different, which led me to like some different ideas, and we're going to get into the demo part of, you know, working with pastes and inks and all that now. So ready to go? Let's go. I hope I covered the basics. I tried to just get the basics so you like at least understand that, and then you can kind of absorb everything. But you have to understand that really the Spritz is a clear base with a coordinating matching pearl in that distress color. That's all you have to remember. That's Spritz. Clear base, matching pearl. That's what makes it. So that's really the easiest way to describe, oh, what is the new Spritz? It's this with this. Oh, okay. Like I said, it may be something that you like to work with. It may not be. But having creative options is what keeps our world going round, right?
Exactly.
Right. Okay. So we're going to just start with the basic factors before we get into all the inky stuff, and that is pattern paper, ideology paper, colored cardstock, whatever you have. Distress Spritz is really great because it's a wonderful way that you can accent what you have. So maybe you have some different papers, maybe you have some ephemera, and you're like, you know what? I love this pattern, but I want it to have something else. Now, we already know we can go in with ink, we can blend, and we can stain it, but that's going to alter the pattern. But if you find a color of Spritz that you want to work with, in this case it was worn lipstick because there were some pink flowers, I just gave it a little Spritz. And now you can see that paper has just that wonderful little luminous shine of pink when the light hits it. But the paper itself is still the paper. Okay, it just has that spritz. And if you didn't want to spritz it on, could you go in and spray it out and actually just watercolor those in? Of course you could. So you could just use the pearls with a brush because when it dries, the binder's already in it, and you could just paint that pearl over certain details if you didn't want to spritz it. You don't have to spray it out. It's a pearl that's in a base that when you apply it to something, it's got the binders and it's going to dry. I just saw, yeah, dragonfly wings, stamped images. So spritzing it was really the intent, but how you use it as a maker is really completely up to you. I love this background, great background for For ideology, I love the backdrops, but you also know I love peeled paint. I love that grungy green color, and I love, look at that. See, when the light hits it, it's like bam, you see all those pearlescent little spritzes. That's the magic of that, because again, it doesn't take away from what you're doing, it just adds an accent to what's already there. Weathered wood. Why did I want to do this as one of the first colors? Well, first, it's really very important to me that I choose my favorites, because you never know how long a product line will go with the manufacturer or how many more colors you'll get. So you got to pick your favorites first. But when it comes to weathered wood, it's that one that's like, it looks very silvery like we saw on black cardstock, but on blue, ooh, look at that. You just get that perfect gray blue where it doesn't look silver on the paper, but when the pearl hits it, that little pearlescent shimmer, ooh, so good. So just a simple thing of spritzing paper. And spritzing paper, it's easy. You just shake it up. So I always like to just give it a good shake. Shakety shake, over shake. It's important. It has a defoaming agent, so it's not gonna pressurize in there. And look, just use your eyes and look. Make sure there's not that line of pearl, and just make sure there's not a big blob at the bottom, because then you just spritz it. That's it. I just did a little spritz. Okay. You won't see the pearl until it dries. You can tell there's moisture because the paper already started to react to it, but you won't see anything until it dries. I'll give you an example just on a piece of white, because I have it here. And every time I use it, I give it a quick shake, just because. So if I just do like a spritz, right now it's just going to look like, well, like wet, okay? But when this dries, and it can air dry, or you can heat dry. In fact, I'll even give it like a second spritz over there, just so you can see it. While it's wet, it doesn't really look like much. So don't be all judgy McJudge on yourself when you're trying it out, okay? I don't have to use a heat tool, but you know I love to use a heat tool because I like things to dry quickly. But this can air dry. It doesn't change what it does at all with heat. This is not heat activated. All this is doing is just drying it so you can see how that pearl shine really comes through. And if you hold your paper up, that gets the moisture through your paper quicker. So notice when I was drying with a heat tool, I just picked up this end so the heat could pass through. It does a couple things. One, it dries it in half the time, and two, it keeps your paper from curling because you're letting the heat go through the paper. But when you do it flat and you heat it, your paper tends to buckle because the moisture is trapped and heat is trying to rise. So, you know, just a little on that. But take a look now. See? Now we've got that beautiful peeled paint sheen. It's very concentrated here, and it's very subtle over here where you put it. That's the beauty of spritz. Simple. All right? So let's just get into some different backgrounds. That will be fun. I think that would be really, really important. You can stop. So now I'm just going to take some, I think I'll start with just some ink. I think that'll be really important. We'll work with some ink pads. Maybe we'll just do a little bit of Oxide. Maybe we'll even do some sprays. I got a little bit of everything because it's fun to just play, especially when you have something new. I can't encourage you enough that, and even if you're not trying spritz, if you ever try any product, okay, give yourself a chance to take it for a spin. It's no different than if you're buying a car. You're not just going to go in. You're going to give it a test drive to see if you like everything about it. How does it feel? What does it do? And you're not just going to sit in the seat and go, nope, I don't like it. You want to do a little bit more. And I think the same thing with a craft product, that sometimes we look at a product and we judge it. And even if you get it, you look at it and you're like, nope, I don't like it. Okay, but have you really given it a chance? Probably not. It is water-based, so you clean it up with water. That's all. You can use a baby wipe, wet paper towel. I just sprayed some water and wiped it off because it is a water-based medium. That's what's so crazy, that it's a water-based medium that dries on paint and resist in collage medium. Strange. But give yourself a chance to get to know it and understand how that's going to work when it comes to utilizing it, okay? So someone just asked if you can spritz on the glass mat. I literally just did on that paper. So you can spritz on the mat or the craft sheet, either one of those. I think that's really, really good. Zoe's like, are you talking to me? Zoe, I am talking to you because I wasn't going to name you, but you called yourself out. So now I can say it. So this is a little true story. So during the Maker Zoom, and I was sharing the new spritz with the makers and doing a little bit of demo, I got to see their faces, and one face in particular stuck out, and that would be Zoe Hillman, who is like, I consider like the ultimate fan, the one that like she's really just loves the world of Tim Holtz, and I'm so grateful for it. But this particular one, she just had this look of like not impressed, and that was okay because you know she's not into sparkly and glittery stuff, so I got that. But nevertheless, she was like a good sport. She got it, she tried it, and she even messaged me. She's like, yeah, I'm not really thrilled. I'm like, just give it a chance. And she wasn't excited. And again, that's okay. Not everything is for everyone. But I'm like, at least give it a chance. You no need to apologize, Zoe, but thank you. Just give it a chance, and you'll find your use for it. You may not like the pinks or the purples, but there'll be something in this product that will resonate with how you use distress. And well, when you see what she did, it's amazing because she found her liking of that, her color choices that she likes. So I think that's important. All right, we're going to start with just inks. I just smushed a little bit of ink and Oxide on there because I just wanted to, just to show you the colors. I'm spraying with water just so we can do a little background. But it is important. I think that's a good learning lesson that when you create with it, maybe even the first thing you do is not impressive, but you've got to give yourself a chance to kind of go back and learn how it works. So right now I'm just creating an ink background. I'm using ink and Oxide just because during the demo I want people to know you can use either or, and if I only demo with ink, people might think you can only use ink, or Oxide, you can only use Oxide. So you don't have to mix it, I'm just doing it. So I started with my first print, just doing a little dry with the heat tool. Doesn't have to be crispy dry, but you can see a lot of it's dry. Now I'm going to go back into the drips. This is a typical background because I'm going to show you different ways that we can spritz. That's what this is about. There's not just one way. You know, it's not like hairspray, you just spray it on and you're done. How you apply it and when you apply it completely changes the outcome. That's the important part of the demo, is really how that works. I just saw a question, does he explain how it works with alcohol ink? It does not work with alcohol ink because Spritz is a water-based product, and that's why it's in the world of distress. It is a water-based medium, so it does not work with alcohol ink. But that's a good question. It's a good question to ask, because if you have that, it won't work well. Okay, I'm just building up some layers right now, just to get some color down. That's good. I think there's many ways to apply hairspray. Yeah, I'm sure. Little twirl, little dance, direct, pull. So, okay, I'll take that back, Denise. There are many ways. But the point is, when you apply it and how you apply it changes the outcome. We can agree on that. Okay? All right. So once we get a background going, and this one I just want to build up some different color layers. That's why I'm wanted a little bit of brown, a little bit of blue, just so you can see what we're doing here. I'm going to mix a little bit of water there too. Cool. All right. Ooh, Frank's hoping for some tattered rose. You'll be pretty happy. That's all I'm going to say. Okay. There we go. Perfect. Jody just asked about using it on white cardstock. Jody, if you saw the beginning of the live, I just showed it all on white cardstock, craft, and black. So absolutely, you could just use it on a plain background just to give it some pop. Whether you're going to do, you know, one spritz, multiple spritzes, like 2, or maybe you want to just go heavy. So how you apply it is ultimately going to even impact the effect. Like you'll see more of the color if you spray it heavy, and you'll just get the accents if you just spritz it a little light. So we've got our background, and right now it's just ink. So now we'll talk about spritzing. Well, I can pick some colors, so maybe I'll go in with a little Uncharted Mariner, because I use some of that, and I'll use Walnut Stain, because I don't have frayed burlap spritz yet. So I'm just going to shake these up, and what I want to do is, I could just use one over the whole thing, but the benefit of the spritz is the fact that it works with distress color, so why not play around with how that actually works. Now you can use a splat box if you want, but if you want to, you know, work with your spritz on here, go for it. So I'm just going to add a little bit, just spritz some there, and then I'm going to take some of the brown, little Walnut Stain, and I'm just going to spritz some there. Now, if you don't like the spritz effect, can you blend it with water? Yeah, you could blend it with water the same way you would blend everything, but you don't have to. Okay. The thing to remember is just start with a little bit, dry it, let it dry with the heat tool before you add more. Because if you add a lot of it, it's very hard to take it back. Okay. So that's what's really interesting. Yeah, it is. I know. Helen says, so the Spritz is water-based, doesn't react with what it is, but reacts with water itself. Yes, it does. Really crazy. Can you use it on fabric if the fabric isn't washed? You could try it. Not all fabrics are created equal. Some really have, I don't know, some agent in it that repels everything when it's sitting on the shelf, but you can try it. It's certainly not a washable medium, but if it's for fabric purposes, like if you're just going to use it, so yes, you can use it on ribbon, seam binding, paper florals, all sorts of things. So here we have that background. So you can see we've got our inky background, and then we've got just that wonderful shine of spritz, okay? But here you can definitely see where it's been spritzed, right? You can see those little specks. So that's why I wanted to show you the first way. We're gonna do another way. We're gonna do another background. So we'll use the same kind of ingredients, but now we're going to apply it a little different. So recap, this was an inked background that we then went in and spritzed. So what if we just take our inks, we'll do kind of something a little similar. I don't think I use peeled paint, but I will on this one, just because. A little bit, just a little bit. And then we'll use some Oxide. Okay. So this one, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to use the spritz on my ink. So instead of using it as a top coat, I'm going to use it in place of water. Now, could you use it in addition to water? Yeah, we'll see. It just depends on how much spritz I want to put down. So I've spritzed a little walnut stain over the frayed burlap. I'm going to do a little uncharted over that. Well, I'll do it over that too. And let's throw in some peeled paint. I've got a whole little pile going on over here. Little peeled paint in that green area. Okay, so this is how much spritz. Personally, I don't think this is like enough liquid to give me the background that I want it to be. So what I'm going to do is just give that a little spray with water just to make sure my inks are reactive enough. And now let's just take, again, I'm working on watercolor paper, but this could be mixed media. This could be any kind of paper that you want to work with. But yeah, if you have certain ribbons and you want to pearlize them, you can. Spritz is beautiful on ribbon, especially like seam binding ribbon. You just spray it on and it will dry on there and give you beautiful luminous ribbon. Okay, so you can see already on the background, see how that's starting to blend? Because it's reactive with water, this is where I prefer to go in with a little bit more water. Like get my inks to move. See, I didn't like that dry area, so I'm just going in with a little water and that will soften out those lines. Now I'm going to maybe add a little bit more water kind of on these outer areas that are a little dry. The whole idea is to just play around with how you work with these. If you have paper flowers like, you know, Ideology Bouquet or Prima flowers, beautiful just to spritz the flowers. That's it. Absolutely incredible. All right. But it's important to remember this is for porous surfaces. So you want to use it on paper, wood, fabrics, ribbon, that type of thing. Not glass, not metal. It's not really for that. All right, still building the layers. You're going to see that it's going to take on a whole different property, really. And you should play around with like, okay, I'm going to try without water. I'm going to try with water. I'm going to see what I like the most. But what I did is by spritzing it on here, I'm able to kind of incorporate the spritz with the ink. So instead of it being that top coat, where see the whole thing is just shiny, shiny, this one's going to react different. You'll see in a second. I'm just going to dry this. Okay. Beautiful, beautiful. Amy's asking, can you apply with a paintbrush? Absolutely. I mentioned that you could go in with a water brush when we talked about watercolor pencils, and that you can just dip it right into the spritz and paint it on. So absolutely. You can use a paintbrush. You can try to brayer it. That's going to give you a whole different kind of look. Vellum is interesting. You could try vellum. Yeah, it works great on that. So here, now take a look at this background. See the difference? This was spritzed. So that means as a top coat, you're going to get the spritz. You get what you get. But if you incorporate your spritz with the ink, the spritz then bonds to the actual ink. So that's why the blue stayed with the blue. It didn't go into the brown. It became one with that ink. The brown stayed with the brown. See, when like we talked about that oil slick, how walnut stain is a little darker, and that's why the Mariner, but you can also see a little bit of undertone from that green, that peeled paint. So that's what makes it really different also, is how you apply it. If you apply it to your ink, it will become one. So essentially you could be making your own mica stain because you use your ink pad or Oxide and you spray it, that's fine. But creating backgrounds is a breeze. Easy, easy to do, okay? So I could reactivate this with water. I could take another tag, and yes, you can use it and clean it up and put it in your journals and all the other things. But you know, if you've watched demos, I don't really do the cleanup part. I'm just going to clean up to get on to the next technique. Okay, and the next technique we'll talk about is, let's do some texture real quick, because texture paste is pretty simple. We're just going to use a little bit of paste, and this could be any kind of texture that you want. I already have one done, but just to give you an idea of how we're going to work with it, I'll take a stencil, because stencils and paste also really fun to do. All right, let's see, what is this? What do you use to seal it after it dries? It does not work for jewelry because it doesn't work on non-porous surfaces. If you're going to do paper jewelry, you can't really seal anything pearlescent without changing the finish. So even if you sprayed it with a lacquer or did a workable fixative, that would seal the pearl, but it would also take away the pearlescence. So it's really not meant for that. Thanks, Mario, for calling that out. All right, so I'm just going to take, ooh, this is a fresh jar. I like when I open fresh jar. It's nice. All right, I'm just going to work on the craft sheet. But again, if you're working on it for cards or mixed media or journals, you don't need to seal it because it's not going to rub off. All right, just going to take a little bit of paste, just going through a stencil. There we go. Take the rest of that, put it back in. Wow, it's nice to have a fluffy jar. Won't last long like that here. Get a little press and seal on that. Okay. Let me just cleaning this off with a little bit of water. Okay. And then we'll just do the dismount. We'll just lift this off. This texture paste, just going to put my stencil in some water. And then we're going to let this dry. So this gets really, it goes on almost like a marshmallow fluff. And then when it dries, it becomes really rigid, but also very porous. So it'll remain flexible, but it'll stay porous. So because I didn't want to wait for anything to dry for this demo, I went in and already finished one, okay? Meaning once this dries, I just went in with spray inks and sprayed it. And if you haven't seen a texture paste demo with sprays, I highly recommend going and checking out the texture medium videos on YouTube that I have on my channel, and you can learn a lot more about texture paste, crackle paste, all of that. But when I ink this, it soaks right into it. And typically this would be a beautiful background. But when you add spritz to it, it just takes a whole different dimension. So this is where I did the same background. And so I inked two of them exactly the same. Well, similar, close enough. This one though, after it dried, I added a layer of spritz in the coordinating colors. So you can see I did a little picked raspberry here, a little wilted violet here, fossilized amber, peeled paint, uncharted mariner, and then I went in with a little peacock feathers, because it's not just putting white pearl over something. Be like, well, hello, Captain Obvious, I can just use like a white pearl spray. Absolutely you could. And then you'll have a white pearl finish. But this is the same color pearl of the ink underneath it, or similar enough. And I think that just adds a whole different level to our background. So let's spritz this one, because it is about the spritz. That's why I wanted really to spend more of the time in the demo showing you how the spritz worked than other mediums. But spritzing this, we'll just play around with it. So we can add some picked raspberry to it. It's really cool, isn't it? It's just like the finish is, it's just crazy. And it goes into the paste and the paper just the same. Now, while these are wet, these are going to blend together. So I'll show you what I mean. I'm going to take some picked raspberry, and we're going to start here. And I'll just do a little picked raspberry there. Now we'll take a little fossilized amber. And because this is still wet, I'm able to blend the spritz, so we'll do that. And I'll show you what I mean by wet blend versus dry. Really important that you understand that. Okay, little peacock feathers there. And let's do some wilted violet. Boy, I'm really piling up over here. That's all right. I should be throwing them in the tin, but I don't want to reach my arm across the whole time during live. So, all right, there we go. So I'm just going to start with that. I could add more if I want, but right now it's really good. So as you can see, it didn't alter what we did. Even though the inks under here are water reactive, technically these should all just start mudding together, right? But they don't, because the spritz just doesn't do that. And now I'm going to dry it. Crazy, crazy. It's very, very fun. It's a fun way that you can utilize this product with your distress. So whatever your distress thing is, if you like to blend, great. If you like to to ink, great. Try all those things. All right, so this is my first layer. So I'm just going to check out and see what it is we have. Look at that. Ooh-wee. That's nice. That's very nice. So the fossilized amber, you can see when the fossilized and the picked raspberry overlapped, it kind of mimics orange. So it doesn't look pink and it doesn't look yellow. It really mimics that orange. Same thing here with the yellow and blue. It kind of mimics that green. Could I have used Twisted Citron? Sure. But I knew I was putting yellow and blue next to each other wet, and yellow and blue make green. So I was just letting it do its thing. But up here, I did use some of the wilted violet because I want the pearl. And this is just, it's a great finish. But if you want it more luminous, so let's just say we wanted more citron. We're like, ooh, but we really wanted green. Okay, we can. But here's what you're going to need to keep in mind. Because I'm spraying this now and it's dry, you're going to see a complete difference because wherever it hits, it's going to sit on top of. It will not blend in like it did here. Here it's blended because everything went on wet. Now we'll see what happens when we add it dry. Pretty much what you see is what you get. I'll show you another piece just to really help you out with that. So for this, I'm just gonna, I'll try to kind of go into that space. That's good. And let's dry it. But you'll see that some citron went over here, some went over here. That's okay. It's not a problem. Definitely a great electric color. Absolutely love that. But you can see that wherever that additional spritz went, it's now visible. But that's okay because it can sit on top. And I'll show you what I mean by how that's applied. So this, of course, is working on texture paste with ink. All right. There we go. So if you were going to do a blend, let's do a blend. We can blend the colors because I saw a question, what if you spritz red over blue, would it be purple? Yes, because red and blue make purple, but it would be purpley. And so I like how you referenced it, would it be purpley? Because yes, it would. So let's talk about this swatch because this is another interesting swatch that I used to, when I was showing people about the spritz and talking to the team at Ranger and makers. All right, we're going to still let this one dry. I'm going to clean this up. So could you, because this is dry, could you add water to reactivate and put papers in it? Absolutely. It is still going to be water reactive, but if you want to clean it, a little bit of water, and we're just going to wipe it up. So it'll come off of your glass or your craft mat, whichever one. Okay, let's talk about this. So this should answer that question about red and blue being purpley. So this right here where you can see this rainbow of spritz, right, is only 3 colors. You can see it's picked raspberry, fossilized amber, and peacock feathers. But you can see here where these two overlapped, it became an orange color, and where these two overlapped, it became green. So no different than if the pink and blue overlapped, it would be purpley. So that is and this is just on white cardstock. So there's no ink underneath. This is just pearl, but a significant amount. I mean, you could tell it's totally saturated. But yes, you can blend your pearls while they're wet. So as long as you spray those down when they're wet, those colors will blend. They will make new colors. That's a great thing about that is if you wanted this blended background, well, pretty much like what I wanted to do here. I wanted, the same way these inks blended on this background, I wanted the spritz to do the same thing. So those were all applied while it was wet. So I knew that where these would overlap, it would make an orange, and where this would overlap, it could make a purple, even though I added some purple over there. You get the idea? But let's just say you want to do them in layers. Can you? Absolutely. We're going to take something a little on the creepy side. For those of you that are like me and you're excited to see all these code orange posts that Halloween is coming, that's me. So this is just a black piece of cardstock using my Sizzix 3D skull folder and doing a little picket fence over the top. This is a demo I shared maybe last year or so. But we can see this is just black cardstock with white over the top of it. And I was like, I wonder if I spritz it, one, will it re-wet this white? Because white is super sensitive. And it did not. So take a look at this one. Looks like a normal background, but look at all these different colors of spritzes in here. You could identify green, purple, orange. Now, how are all these colors visible? Because they were all applied independently. I spritzed a little bit of orange, dried it. Then I spritzed some green, dried it. Spritz purple, dried it. Went back and did orange. So it doesn't really matter what order you put that on. You can just go in and add those colors. And so if you want them to be independent of each other and still have that speckly look, just let them dry. And it's crazy that it did not re-wet, because these both started the same paper. It's exactly the same paper. These were the same backgrounds. But when that pearl even hits the white, it didn't bleed the white, but it certainly sat on top of it. So you got all those little bits of colory pearl, and I love how it kind of turned it green. But I think the background is beautiful. Beautiful, luminous background. So that's another way that you can apply it, is instead of doing a wet blended look, you spritz, dry, spritz, dry, spritz, dry. We'll spritz one. We'll just, I mean, because the demo's here, but let's spritz. We'll just do one color just to start, just to show you how that works. I'm just going to give it a shakety shake. Now, if I'm close, you're going to get a blast, and if you're far away, you're going to get speckles. Let me just show you on a plain piece of paper so you can get the visual, okay? Meaning, if I'm close to a surface and I spritz, you're either going to get a circle or you're going to get lines. It really just depends on how much pigment's in there. Sometimes it comes out as a sidewinder. You don't always get a perfect bullseye. That was by luck, I suppose. But if I'm further away, so now I'm kind of back here, maybe even off camera sometime, and I spritz, because that's what it's all about, that's what's going to give you the spritz, okay? So a splat box, for those that don't want spritz anywhere, that would work, okay? But I love the fact that I can get a little closer. See, I can spritz a couple times. But if you're really close, so this is if you wanted like juicy paper, then yeah, you would just get close and blast it. So for the speckly effect on this background, I just want to spritz and dry, spritz and dry. So I'm going to keep my distance, give it a couple of sprays, maybe some a little closer, and then we're going to dry it. Because you don't know what's going on until it dries. You don't really get to see it. I have to say, what's really cool about this demo, now that I'm looking over at my tin, this is probably one of the first demos I've ever done where I've taken a tin of something and used every single one of them. This is the last color. Crazy, right? Really? That makes me feel real good. I needed all 12 of these colors. All right, so let me just show you. See, look at that. You don't really notice it there. You're like, oh, he didn't do anything. Waste. Nope. There it is. Bam. It's all there.
I love seeing that.
It's so cool.
It's nothing and then it's everything.
Right. So when you're using it, that's what I'm saying. Like, you need to use it, dry it, look at it, and then decide what you want to do next. Because if you're Judgy McJudge and you're like, it didn't work, I'm going to spray more, oh, garbage. Like, you have to really anticipate what it's designed to do. And you could be perfectly happy with that, right? Because you just love that nuance that when the light hits it, you get that beautiful purple. I'm just going to add a little spice marmalade. So again, shakety shake. Now, if you don't want to spritz it, could you use a splatter brush, a paintbrush? Of course, you could use any tool you want to apply it. But remember that the purpose of this particular sprayer is to spritz. That's why I called it spritz, because I wanted that pattern from this type of sprayer. And it's quick. There we go. Spritz a little bit of orange. Now we're going to dry it. And this is where, because we are spraying just a pigment, the chances of it clogging, it could happen. So, I mean, replacement sprayers is just kind of the nature of what it is. It's like, you know, printer cartridges are the nature of printer. You print for a while and then you need another one. Take a look at that. Ooh, yeah. See? So the orange on the purple, and it's orange, even though there was purple under there, because we're drying it. This is a pigment. It is going to sit on top of what you put it with. If you want it to blend, you need to do it wet. So wet and dry just give you totally different effects. Like I said at the very beginning, how you apply it and when you apply it completely affects the outcome of what you see. Love it. I love this background. All right, let's move this. So let's talk something else about stencils and just some ideas of using spritz with stencils as well. Just going to clean this off. Do you have to clean it? No, but this is just how I work. I always clean up. Okay. Stencils have some really great features when it comes to how you can alter a background. So this is a watercolor cardstock. Someone asked about what kind of black cardstock. I'll just talk about real quick the cardstocks that I'm using. They're all part of the Distress line. So that's Distress Black Heavy Stock. That's that beautiful black suede finished paper black. That's Distress Craft Heavy Stock. So heavy stocks are really a heavyweight black paper. So this is 125 pound. This one's 130 pound, I believe. Yep, 130 pound. White heavy stock, also 130 pound, and Distress Watercolor cardstock. I pulled the tabs down. That's 114, I think, 118 pounds. So that's got a textured and a smooth side. That's what I work with. But use what you have. You don't have to use these papers. The papers aren't making magic. It's the spritz that's making magic. So play around with the papers that you have. So this one, I just did a little ink blending in peeled paint on the background. Did a little Twisted Citron just to brighten it up. And then I just took one of these wonderful Stampers Anonymous stencils and spritz through it. Did a little peeled paint spritz so you get a tone on tone effect. So you can see that even when the light doesn't hit it, it's a little dingier because it is a pigment that's sitting on top. But then when the light hits it, then you just get that wonderful shine in that pattern. Pretty, isn't it? It's really cool. But to show the power of really the spritz, let's take another piece of paper. Let's do some blending. Let's do a little blending on the background. I'm going to get, let's just get a couple of these. I'm just going to stick these down. And let's take some ink. I'm going to take a little Villainous Potion Distress ink, and I'll take a little Wilted Violet Oxide. Okay? And we're going to just do some ink blending on this. Okay? Just watercolor paper. It could be whatever you want though. But I'm going to do some purple. So I need a blending tool for each. Now, could you use one tool for both? You could if you went ink first and then dipped in oxide, no problem. But could you do oxide and then go to ink? You could not, because you would contaminate it. So because I might want to go back and forth, I'm just going to have two separate blending tools. And then I'm just going to take a piece of, this is, I think that it's like a mask, it's maybe Mask Magic. It's just like a paper tape. It's not really masking tape, but just a piece of tape. You'll see why, just because I want to use it for my fingers. All right, so let's just do a quick blended background. So I'm going to start with I just put a little grip mat just to grip the ink pads. I'm going to do a quick little amount of blending on the background. I can start like this, but now that I'm going to cover, this is where this comes in. I just stick my fingers to the tape, and now when I ink, I'm not going to get fingerprints in my background. I think I picked up that tip from Christina Werner and somebody. Maybe she had a Post-it note, or maybe she did use tape. So, and that's why I use the grip mat, because now I don't need to use a hand to hold on to it. So if you're notorious for fingerprints in your ink blend, and you don't want to use this, I don't like to blend with a sticky mat because it limits, you know, I have to feel like a contortionist. I like to just spin my paper. So that's really what I use. All right. Here we go. We're going to do a little bit more villainous. That's nice. Shade that in. You can get pretty heavy with it. All right. Perfect, perfect. All right. And then that piece of tape, I just trash it. I mean, if you're done with the background, you can trash it, or when it doesn't stick, you can trash it. Okay, so we've got a blended background. That's nice. Nice ink blended. Little of this, little of that. Put the right lids on the right inks. If you weren't storing these, I know a lot of people store their domed foams or their blending foams by color or by product type. If you're on a limited budget and you just have a certain stack of foams, you can wash and reuse these. Both of them. Just rinse them with water, squeeze it out, let them dry, and there you go. Okay, that's it. So, good deal. Move those. Then let's do a little spritz. So let's take something like this. We'll take a little star stencil. Let's place that down. I think the weight of the stencil is going to be fine. I often just use that as weight because the grip mat also helps. I use it on the top instead of the bottom because it just adds enough weight to keep my stencil flat. But again, you do what works for you. Let's take a little bit of spritz and use some of this wonderful fossilized amber, because I could do this in any color I want, but I want to show really the power of the pigment, okay? Because we're going to go yellow over purple. And typically yellow over purple means brown, right? Not in the world of spritz though, because it's just a pigment. Well, it's many pigments. I say just, and I'm sure Brian's like, it's not just, it's probably like 6 or 8 carefully curated blends, and he would be right. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is just spritz. So I'm spritzing over this, so you might see my hand pass because I don't want to flood my stencil. So I'm just going to keep my distance and I want that spritz, I want the splatter. Perfect, I'm good with that. Yes, I would want to probably use something else to pick this up, you know, another tag or something when I'm done. These just dip right in the water because they're They're just silicone, so that cleans off really easy. Same with that, or you could just wipe it off. Then when I go to do the dismount, I'm just going to hold one part of the stencil when I pick up this. Now, you might think, oh, I'm going to do a monoprint with this. I didn't think it turned out good, but try it. I mean, I tried printing with it. Maybe I did. I'm going to try to add water. Okay, I'm going to dry this one. I'll put it on camera. I don't want you to think there's any trickery going on, but I'm just going to dry it. And I think this is so cool, the effect that you can get with spritz, especially when you're playing with a stencil. Because now we can have a background that has, a wonderful magical blend, but then when the light hits it, now we have those amber stars. Isn't that cool? So cool on there. Just to have any kind of spritz you want. So there is no rule of like, well, do I have to use blue with blue and green with green? Can I use pink on brown? Yes, you can. So you can use really any color you want, because understanding that this is simply pigment. There is no ink, unlike a stain or a mica stain. We're just dealing with pigment in a clear liquid that has that binder. So when you spritz it on, it's going to sit on whatever it is that you want to do. So again, understanding all those different properties of like, okay, if I want it blended, wet on wet, it's very similar to ink, right? When I say wet on wet blends, wet on dry layers, it's the same philosophy. It's just really understanding that this medium is designed to totally accentuate what you already do. I just love that. So to clean it off the stencil, same thing. I'm just going to dip that in water. It just comes right off. Okay, we could do a little painting too, because that's going to be fun. Let's clean this. Just wipe it. I'm just using a cotton cloth. You could use a paper towel, a baby wipe, whatever you have. But it is pearly, so if you're using spritz and you don't clean your area, you might come back and go to work with something and you get like a little hint of shimmer in that. Well, it could be leftover spritz, but I like that. Okay, so this background, this is very similar to a textured background, but I just wanted to do it just to show you that like if you do an inky background, we can also modify where that color goes. Meaning, I did an inky background just like I did at the very beginning of the demo. I laid the stencil down and then I spritzed coordinating color. So I spritzed pink through the pink area, kind of peacock feathers through that, fossilized amber through that, a little wilted violet through that, a little barn door through that. So I actually spritzed. This was the background that I put on the photo that many of you were like, is that it? Question, did it stick to acetate? It does not stick to plastic. No, it's for porous surfaces only. So that would be paper, wood, fabric. So it does not work on plastic, metal, or glass. It won't dry. I mean, it would dry, but it would wipe right off. Unless it's collage medium or resist spray or paint. But you can see just really that beautiful blend that when you look at it, it's like, oh, it looks like ink. But then when you put it over that, how the color of pearl changes. I thought this was a great visual to really understand spritz, that those colors of pearls is really what made the whole thing magic. Okay, so let's talk about just coloring in general. We'll bring in some pencils, a little bit of pencils. I'm not known for my coloring, that's for sure, but I like to do it. It's still fun. Okay, go ahead. What do you got? Does it work on glossy cardstock? Guessing no. Glossy cardstock is actually the most porous of all papers. So let's see if I have a sheet of it here. It would work on glossy. Yeah, it would stick to that. Yeah, there should be a sheet, probably on the top of that section right there. Yep. Does it feel glossy?
Bam, the first one.
There you go.
I'm
Look
on
at that. Oh.
That's good.
No,
Is it not?
this is Yupo. See, it's plastic. That's all right. It felt like it. It's all right. We'll see if we have one already cut in the spinner. It might be on the other side, but if you feel it.
This one.
Okay.
Wait, this one,
Yeah.
this one.
There you go. Yeah, that's
Woo!
that's glossy. All right. Interesting thing. I mean, we'll talk about glossy, then we'll move on to that stamping one.
Second chance.
Yeah, glossy
baby.
cardstock is a clay-coated paper. So what's really interesting, we'll even talk like, Distress ink. A lot of people think like when you use Distress ink on a paper like that, that it would come right off. When it dries, like see, it's drying like into the surface here. It's like drying under the surface. Even without heat, just kind of letting it dry. Distress ink will even dry on glossy. Isn't that weird? It's very strange because you would think like if you did Distress ink on something else, it's going to be gone. So stamping on it, yes, Archival, stays on, VersaFine, whatever you want to use. So let's do a spritz on glossy. I'm going to say yes, but, you know, I haven't done it, so I'm not going to sit there and say yes without doing it. Let's spritz it on. And I'll even spritz it like heavy over here, and we'll just do a little lighter over there. Okay, let's dry it. So I will tell you that when you put it on, because now we're doing this, see how it goes on glossy? It would go the same way on like resist spray or Collage medium. It sits different than it does on paper, but I'm guessing that it's going to dry totally fine. Some glossy paper work fine and some don't. Do you know why? Usually people think glossy paper is any paper that has a shine. So a lot of people refer to photo paper as glossy paper. That's not. That's photo paper. That's emulsion based. Glossy cardstock, true gloss cardstock, is a clay coated paper. So like Ranger's glossy cardstock, alcohol ink cardstock is a clay coated paper. So the back of it is matte and it has a shiny surface. It's the clay that absorbs everything. That's why the finish is shiny, but it's really, think of like a clay pot, a terracotta pot. Even though this is a shiny clay, it's absorbing the medium that you put. So that's why it works really well with inks. It used to be the alcohol ink surface, but if you've ever used alcohol ink on it, you know that while it allows the ink to move a little bit, it's not nearly as forgiving as like Yupo or something synthetic. So most people try to use photo paper as their glossy, and their inks, when they stamp, the inks bleed, or when they try to, you know, blend, everything wipes off. Well, because it's not glossy paper. It's just photo paper that either you're trying to use as glossy or someone sold you as glossy, but it isn't. So this is our dry spritz, and it's dry on there. So we still have our glossy paper, but our spritz is totally dry on there. So there you go. Cool. Happy to answer that. Happy to answer that in real time. I think that's cool. Okay. So let's talk about doing some stamping and coloring. And the reason I know the answer is because I asked the question myself. So that's why I'm never bothered when people ask questions. That's why we do demos. I think, you know, I've been doing this enough years to know that there's nothing more frustrating than a new product coming out and you're just scouring the internet for answers and nothing's there because really nobody knows about it. Instead, they're just like, well, here's the product, get it. I always want to know the hows and the whys. So even before it comes to market, I've tried, doesn't mean I know everything. It doesn't mean I've tried everything, but I've tried at least the basics to kind of understand. And that was important to me. Hey, Mario, can you do me a favor? Sure. In the bottom wood drawer on the far right side, there's a black Archival. You can get me that or the tin. That one right there? Yep. Mm-hmm. There you go. Black Archival on top. Thanks. Thank you. All right. So we're just going to take, you can take any waterproof ink, but someone asked about stamping, and you could stamp on it. I'm just going to take a little butterfly stamp. So let's see, what backgrounds have we done? We've done a few. So let's look for something kind of inky. All right. So I'm just going to do a little bit of Archival. I'm going to do watercolor first. I'm just going to make sure it's nice and inked. We're going to stamp that with purpose. So just give a little wiggle. You're a nice image. Okay, now let's stamp on a background as well. Okay, I think I'll do this one. That'll work. Just in this space, or maybe we do something with stars. I don't know. It doesn't really matter. Don't overthink it, Holtz. Just get on with it. Ooh, I like this one though. I don't know why. I don't know why I'm going to put a butterfly in a starry sky, but guess what? I am. There you go. So keep in mind that the pigment will always dominate a dye. That's in the world of everything, okay? Pigment dominates dye, meaning even if I stamped on it, because this is a dye-based ink, the pigment of the star is going to come through. You'll still see the image. So see, you can see when like it's a full butterfly, but when the light hits it, that pigment is like, here I am, nice try. But yes, you can still stamp on it with Archival or anything, just something to kind of keep in mind. Okay, so if you stamp in Archival or anything waterproof, as long as it's a waterproof ink, you can color with ink, you can color with pencils. So let's just do some quick coloring with some pencils, and we'll talk about incorporating the spritz. I'm going to take some Distress watercolor pencils. Let's do a little mustard seed, a little ripe persimmon. I think that'll be a good start. Maybe I want to take, maybe I'll just do a little bit of red. So let's see. Let's do festive berries. Okay, that'll work. Oh no, it won't work. I need some more colors. I'm going to just do a little rustic, almost. And we'll do a little bit of brown. See, when when I play, this is how I play. Just do what you like. Okay, I'm gonna start just by adding some color. So we'll just take my pencil, just add my colors, a little right persimmon. You can tell I'm coloring with purpose. See? Yeah. This is just how it works. Let's do a little bit of green just down the middle section, and then we'll do some gathered twigs at the bottom. Okay, that's my beautiful coloring job. Okay, we can take a water brush or a paintbrush with water, whatever it is that you want to do. You have some options. First, we could just take water and we could watercolor. So that's what the pencils do with water. And then you could add Distress Spritz. Personally, I just think if you're going to use spritz, then you really don't need to use water. So I have a cup off to the side that I will be cleaning my brush because I don't want the pigments to muddy up. I want, like, if I'm going to keep the pigments, I'm going to keep the pigments. So off to the side here, I'm going to try to work with very similar pigments to what I did with the pencil-ish. So that means we use a little bit of, let's clear some of this stuff out. There we go. We'll use a little bit of orange because I did, even though that's right persimmon, I'm going to still use some marmalade, just going to give it a spritz. We'll use a little bit of yellow, so that's going to be fossilized amber. A little spritz of that. Oh, I'll throw them over here in the tin. Let's do some green, so we'll have a little bit of peeled paint. Probably don't need much of that, but I'm going to put it there. We're going to use some red, so let's take barn door. So that's why it was really good that it was like a deeper red, okay? So there we go. We're going to add some red and brown, little walnut stain. But if you wanted to add some blue pearl or whatever, you could. You don't have to do matchy-matchy. You could do whatever you want. So in this instance, now you have some other options of really how you want to apply it. You can use just a regular brush, like a dry watercolor brush, because you wouldn't necessarily need water from a water brush to also dilute the pearl. Does that make sense? So, but you could use your water brush. If that's what you had, you could. But I'm going to just start with this brush and just see if it's going to be wet enough to move it. And it should. And I'll kind of work color by color. Oh yeah, it's definitely plenty wet. So I'm just I dip that in barn door, spritz, and I'm watercoloring with it. Okay? And I'm going outside the lines. I don't really care. I'm going to clean this just with some water. I'm going to wipe it off on a towel just so it's a little dry. Pick up some of that spritz. This one was spice marmalade, and that's going to blend that color. Okay, here we go. Clean that off. Now, if you don't want to dip your brush in water, could you just wipe off the spritz like on a paper towel or something? Absolutely. So if you found that maybe it was too wet for your liking, you could still clean off the spritz from your brush just from using, I mean, you could even just use the side of the craft sheet of the glass. But my point is that there's plenty of fluid in the Distress Spritz to watercolor. You don't need to add water as well. You certainly could, but you just don't need to. All right, I'm going to go into brown. And I'm not going to clean it because I'm going into brown. That's going to be a little walnut. And I love the fact that I'm still able to work with the pencils as if I was using watercolor, but it's just going to give me a subtlety of pearl. And of course it's going to be subtle because you can see that, I mean, we only spritzed one spritz onto the mat and we're only using part of it. So you can't expect it to be as pearly as if you went and did like a straight spritz onto it. Does that make sense? You'll see in a second. All right. All righty. Beautiful, beautiful. Okay. Nice. Let's see. Here we go. So you can see, see that little pearlescent shine in there? That's what it does with pencils. Now, of course, if you want more, do more. You know, if you want the red to really, let me clean my brush. If you want the red to really pop, you can spritz on some more red. You could add, maybe you want to add some pink. So I'm going to take some barn door and maybe we'll add, there we go, a little picked raspberry to that same little puddle. And now we're going to have like a pinky red that we can go over that area. I'll show you. I'll just do one side just so you can see the difference. Then we'll dry it. And again, not necessarily drying it to get the pearl to do anything. Just drying it so you can see it, because I think that's really, really important. Okay. There you go. It's still wet there. Let's dry it. I don't want to cheat. I want you to think water is shine. It is shiny, but I don't want you to see that. There we go. Okay. There we are. So see, you just get a different shine. You just get, it's a little bit more of a pinky red. That's the beauty, the subtlety of working with spritz. And of course, you could just color them on their own. But just so you know, I'm just going to take just a white area, and I'm going to use that same pinky red spritz, just so you can see where you're like, well, hello, why didn't you just color with spritz? You could, but just know that when you put down the color, this is going to be that color of that pinky red that we did. Let me dry it just so you understand. So if you want subtlety, by all means, watercolor just with the spritz. But if you want color, but you want some shine, it's great that you use it as it's designed as that accent. So you can see here, I mean, the difference that you're not going to get that same undertone. But I do. I love that little bit of little shine and little spritz, which brings me to the next thing when it comes to stamping and spritz and how you can use it. Okay? Let me take, I'm just going to clean this off. Again, a little bit of water. And let's wipe this off. And I see you guys answering each other's questions. Thank you. I know some people joined after the live started and, you know, asking if it's, you know, where it's available. And so thanks for answering those questions. It's great. Yes, it is available worldwide, or shipping worldwide. You know, whether or not they received it is a whole nother story. Okay. Let's take another stamp. I think I can use this block. Yeah, I'll use this block. That'll work. So we're just going to take, we'll do a different butterfly this time. We want something a little different. I'm using stamps. This is just a fun stamp. I'm using Flutter, by the way. CMSG. It just has a lot of butterflies if you're into small little butterfly things. Okay. Moving stuff out of the way. If you would see, like, Mario always shakes his head because I start out so, but I'm a very tidy maker. But when I'm in it, I'm in it to win it. I want to just go for it, and I don't want to be distracted with, I think I'm going to use a little fossilized amber. I don't want to be distracted with the cleanup while I'm creating.
But you wouldn't even feel so this way if you were on your regular table.
Probably.
I mean, you have
it's just a bigger table for me to chuck stuff on, right?
Working on a TV.
But that's what we always say. We're like, we need a bigger craft. Just a bigger craft table doesn't mean you work in a bigger space. You still work in this much space. It just gives you more room to throw things. That's really the truth of it, right?
It could be like me in the kitchen and work on that 6-inch counter.
Mario does, yeah. He's got the whole kitchen, and he wants to work in like a 6-inch space between the sink and the floor, and that's where he does it. All right. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to just work with some mini Distress ink cubes. You can use Distress inks if you want your regulation size, but we're just going to do a little bit of stamping. Stamping. Okay. Going to ink this up. So I'm just going to use the edge of the cube. I like using minis for this just because it gives me a little bit more control as to where the color goes. So next, I'm just going to add a little bit of ink. So I'm just blending. So now I'm just going in right next to my pink. I'm going to go in with a little bit of yellow. That's going to be fossilized amber. Maybe I want to add, I don't know. Maybe I want to add a little bit of red. So maybe red I'll just do on the bottom. You can't really see it, and you can't contaminate the inks either. So just remember that. In the world of Distress, I know everyone always freaks their freak when it comes to working with multiple colors. They're like, oh, I'm going to contaminate it. You can't. Even if you did yellow over blue, I mean, it's always good to work light to dark, but you don't have to. You're not transferring enough ink to destroy this at all. Okay. So now I'm just going to go in a little walnut stain on the body. Okay, here's what I have. An inked stamp. Next, I'm going to take a color of spritz. I'm just going to take some worn lipstick. It could be whatever color you want it to be. But if you've seen this technique, you know that typically we would take water and we would spray the stamp and get watercolor. Instead, I'm just going to use spritz. Let's see what we get. Give it a couple of sprays. This way we get that ink wet. Then we're going to go in and stamp it. Stamp with purpose, and we're going to dry it. That's going to be our first generation. We'll do a second generation as well. Could you use water and spritz? Why not? I'm not going to, but you could. And we'll spritz this again. There we go. And we'll do a second generation. So what we've done is we've kind of reacted the ink, so to speak, because that's what you could do with any kind of moisture. But then this is going to leave behind a little bit of a sheen. So there we go. You can see just that. Can you see it? You see it in the wings and the bottom. There we go. That light hits it. Good. So whatever color you use, this case it was worn lipstick, it's light enough pink that it's still beautiful on the light areas, but it doesn't change the blue. It doesn't change the colors is my point. It still has that. Does that make sense? And I think that's really what's really pretty about the spritzes is that you can use it, and you could use other colors, but remember that the color of spritz is going to be the color of pearl that you have. So for example, if we would have done this purple, then yeah, you would probably see purple spots everywhere. But because worn lipstick is really the lightest pink, you could have done weathered wood. That would be like a nice silvery blue. But I love the fact that the spritz, it reacts the ink enough, but you can see clearly not like water, right? Because you know we're trying to fight that factor of that it really doesn't reactivate the Distress ink. So if you want a watercolory look with spritz, then yeah, maybe you wanted to mist the stamp with water first, then spritz it, then stamp it, and you would get more of a watercolory spritzy look like this one. So this one I went in and did the same thing, but I spritzed the stamp with water once, then I spritzed the stamp with worn lipstick spritz twice, and then I stamped it, and this way I got a watercolory look and that spritz. Does that make sense? So you have creative options. That's the beauty of it. But I love the fact that it just doesn't distort things the way you would. You would think that this is just going to be all this color because it's like, it's a mucky color. It isn't. It's absolutely beautiful to work with. And to clean this off, again, it's just going to be water. So I'm just going to spray this with water, wipe it off with a cloth. You could also just run it under the sink or use a baby wipe, and it's going to come off the block and the stamp. No problem. All right. Easy enough. Okay. Gosh, I'm just looking through, making sure I kind of watercolor paper.
Watercolor paper.
If I'm watercoloring, I'm using watercolor cardstock.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I use watercolor cardstock, I would have to say 90% of the time. I love Distress watercolor cardstock because it's a bumpy side for doing watercolor and it's a smooth side for stamping and inking. I feel that it holds color the best. I feel that it doesn't absorb product like other papers, even like, you know, white mixed media. It's a nice paper, but this is great for blending and stamping. I don't really like it for wet techniques. Mixed media heavy stock, also great, but it's cream. So if I really want bright colors, this is always going to impact my colors if I'm using dyes, right? So that's really what you have to remember. So that's why it's like it's kind of my go-to paper most of the time, all of the time. So there we go. I really think I covered, well, as much as I could, working with stamps, working with pastes, working with sprays, working with textures. I'm just going through the inventory of my mind, which is a frightening place, by the way. Stencils, let's see, yes. Inky backgrounds, yes. Like in my brain, check, yes. Oh, there's something else I didn't do. Oh, see, I'll show you that. I told you I had a whole little checklist. Oh, see that blend? Isn't that just, it's just marvelous. And then just imagine just die cutting. So this is just watercolor cardstock, spritz to blend, let it dry, and then die cut this. So now die cut butterflies. So you don't have to, you could certainly spray second, but I love the fact that you can also just make your own cardstock just using spritz. But I wanted to share these because this sparked another idea. It wasn't really part of that plan, but I'm like, I wonder if this is where you ink the folder and you kind of deboss the color. I wonder what would happen over Oxide. And I love the difference because they both still look very kind of matte and subtle, but this one was spritzed later with wilted violet. So I love that we still have that like opacity of Oxide. It changed the tone of the Oxide a little bit because, well, it's no surprise, it's got a purple pigment sitting over it. So even though this was purple Oxide, this was Dusty Concord, it still to me looks oxidized because it's got a very matte finish. But then after this is dry, I just spritzed one with just over the whole thing just to cover it, to be like, oh, is that going to like make the Oxide re-wet? And it didn't. Instead, see, you can see how much purple is on it. Isn't that beautiful? So it just changed the whole effect of this by adding spritz. And then this one, this was a background I did, well, years ago. This is using the Reptile, and I'm like, this had resist spray on it, so it was all shiny. And I'm like, oh, I wonder if resist spray is long and set, could I add spritz? And you can take a look. Like, you can see these little dots, these little bright green dots. Just depends on how the light hits it. But it's got that luminous, there's even some blue. So it's got peacock feathers, some twisted citron, and some peeled paint spritz. So I love that it's shiny, but then it also has just that little bit of spritz on there. So gosh, there's just so many ways to use this stuff that makes it magical. But nonetheless, I think when you work with Distress Spritz, you know, whether you're changing colors, see, playing. These were just play cards. I didn't even show them but it was no different than this. I'm like, oh, well, how does it change the green? I love how, like, peeled paint, twisted citron made it brighter, and then peacock feathers still gave me green, but it also gave me like a teal. How does it impact blue? So this is a whole nother swatch level. If your swatch game is really strong, you can go in and say, okay, I'm just going to take my ink colors that coordinate with this and see other spritz and how it actually changes that ink color. It's just a lot of fun. So there we have it. That's the whole world of Distress Spritz. And in order for me to, I think, fully finish this demo, I need to put these back the same way. Look at how it started. That's just how I am. Just going to cap them and put them in. I hope you guys understand the whole properties of these. There, of course, is a blog post that shows all the colors sprayed out that will go up following this live. As I mentioned, there's going to be makers. That'll be posting. Once this live ends, they'll be posting throughout the day. So that's going to be exciting to see and learn, because, heck, I'm sure there's no doubt that they've discovered things that I probably haven't even discovered yet, because I think it's such a cool thing when you have a new medium to play around with, try, explore, see like what it does. That to me is perfect happy. All right, there's our sprayer for peeled paint. Put that in. Look at that. Labels facing forward, because that is my OCD brain. Oh, see, there's a lid. Oh my, oh my. I can't help it. There'd be no way that I could switch his camera back knowing that that was still there. So that is the new thing in the world of Distress.